and welcome to the Mama Making Podcast. Whether you're a new friend or an early listener, I'm so glad you found us. On this podcast, we'll be chatting with fellow moms on topics all over the map. Maybe you'll find a new mom friend or just get a good laugh. Either way, we hope you find a comfortable space for the next hour. Now put on your AirPods or connect to your CarPlay, and let's dive in. This episode is sponsored by Collabs Creative, a digital marketing collaboration focused on supporting makers, creators, and small business owners with all things digital and design. For more information about Collabs Creative, go to www.collabscreative.com or visit Instagram at collabs.creative. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Mama Making Podcast. If you're new here, welcome. If you're not new, then welcome back. I am your host, Jessica, and I am excited to once again bring another Rewind episode to you listeners. As mentioned last week, before jumping into Season 5, I wanted to reminisce a bit on the past episodes on the Baby Making Podcast and now the Mama Making Podcast. We've been podcasting for about 5 years now, which sounds so crazy to me. But I wanted to feature some of our most listened to best of episodes. So last week we had the amazing Haley Matosian talking about her 2 home births, one being a twin birth. She is such an incredible human being, and listening to her episode back was amazing. So this week we have Nora DeBora, and she is the voice and the brains behind Naturally Nora. She works to help women prepare for pregnancy and not only get pregnant, but stay pregnant. So we talk in this episode about the 4 R's to getting pregnant. I won't give you too much information on what those 4 are. You'll have to give it a listen, but it is a really great episode about her service as a holistic preconception planner and what she had going on in the beginning. And I will also share in our show notes what offerings she has now. She has grown a ton since 2021, so I'm looking forward to sharing with you some of the things that she has going on. Not only does she have one-to-one private coaching, she also has a Getting Pregnant program, a 14-day fertility cleanse, as well as coding your menstrual cycle. But she has so many different guides and programs on her website. She also has the Ultimate Pregnancy Prep podcast. We talked about it a bit in the episode about how she is going to get started with the podcast. So I'm so excited to share. She is on episode 157 out of her podcast. So thank you again for tuning in. Let us know what you loved about the episode, and we'll talk to you soon. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Baby Making Podcast. Today, I'm very excited to be kicking off the Planning for Pregnancy series with Nora DeBora of Naturally Nora. Nora is a holistic preconception planning coach, helping women achieve their best possible health prior to pregnancy. Today, we'll be digging into Nora's 4 R's for prepping for pregnancy. Welcome, Nora, and thanks for joining me on the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Jessica. I'm excited to be here.
I'm excited to have you. So we'll just jump right into it as we usually do on the podcast. Tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, where you're from, what you do for work, whatever you're comfortable sharing.
Yeah. So my name is Nora, as you mentioned, and I'm a preconception health coach. And I specifically specialize in holistic nutrition and fertility awareness method, which is helping women accurately chart and interpret their cycles. I'm also a personal trainer. I teach yoga. I kind of wear a bunch of different hats in the health and wellness space. I've been in the health and wellness field now for about 8 years. I'm 38 years old, and I'm a single woman looking to start a family one day soon. So as well, not the typical, in my 20s, married, pop out babies by 30, and just going on my merry way. So that's part of actually my journey to kind of moving into this space and really niching in this area. I would say for me, my background really is, I went to, after high school, I graduated and I went to university and I did undergrad in psychology. And then after that, I went to postgrad and I did an HR management program, went and started my corporate career in my 20s and, that typical path. And then I was in some pretty kind of unsuccessful toxic relationships at that time. And I ended up finding yoga. So I grew up competitive dancing. So movement to me is like really therapeutic. It's part of like my medicine for my body. And when I found yoga, And did that first downward dog on the mat. I was in a hot studio. I had like literally water like going up my nose and into my eyeballs from all the sweat. And I was like, what is this? But at the same time, I was like, OMG, this is amazing. And I fell in love. I literally immediately fell in love. And that was the catalyst that like changed the trajectory of my whole life. Right from that, I decided to do yoga teacher training. From there, I learned about an Eastern philosophy of medicine called Ayurveda. Have you heard of Ayurveda?
I have.
Yeah, and I did. Yeah, I love it. I did a practitioner course for Ayurveda and yoga, and then from there, learned about a holistic nutrition, and then went back to school for holistic nutrition at about the age of 29 or 30, and transitioned out of my corporate career into the health and wellness space. And then I kind of started my own health practice. I had a nutrition practice out of my home. I trained clients. I was teaching yoga at corporate offices and studios. I was really loving my life. I still love my life. But I guess at that point, I was in my early 30s, found myself, kind of dating, still single, and just realizing, all my friends were having babies around me. And I was like, you know what, this is probably not going to happen for me like now. So, what can I do to prepare my body as best as I can to help me preserve my fertility and be able to conceive naturally and healthfully later in my life, whenever that is? And as I was diving into all the research, I thought, Jessica, I was like, this is going to be easy. Like, I have a health and wellness background. This is going to be a no brainer. I'm just going to need to tweak this, change that, and then I'll be good to go. Started diving into the info and I was just like, what the heck? I was so overwhelmed. I was so confused. There was so much contradicting information out there. There wasn't there. I found gaps in information. And that's when I was just like, all right. I had this like light bulb moment that this is what I needed to pivot and focus on. So I ended up kind of pivoting and then niching in this space, did a couple extra certification courses, and that's kind of how my whole preconception business was born. And it was quite a big transition to get there. A lot of uncomfortable, anxious moments, confusing moments, but it's like the best thing I've ever done. And I'm so grateful and happy to be in this space, helping so many women and couples, all around the world, because I have an online business, really improve their fertility and fulfill their dreams of becoming a mom.
Yeah. And one of the things that kind of drove me to do a series on pre-pregnancy and preconception, pre-planning, whatever you want to call it, is because there is such, like you said, there's a gap in information. And I think it's these two pillars of like regular medical model that's like get pregnant and then come back to me and we'll talk versus like the more holistic space where it's like, hey, your life is going to reflect how your pregnancy goes and getting pregnant. So I think that there's some information in the middle that people are missing and that it doesn't have to be so, and it's not so black and white. So I'm excited to do this series and then have you kick it off just because nobody learns about this stuff.
Nobody.
And I think this space is just so uninhabited that I'm excited to have you on and kind of spread the work that you're doing to get people optimal. Because I think there are so many people who are like, well, I have a partner, but I'm not totally ready to have a baby. I'm in my mid 30s. I feel like I should be doing something, but I'm not there. Or as you said, don't have a partner and are like, all right, what can I do to kind of get moving? And I think this is a great way to do it. So I'm excited to jump into it with you.
Yes, yes. And I will say as well that a lot of the time, first of all, first thing is, there's tons of stats and research out there that are showing that women are waiting longer to have babies, whether it's they're focusing on the career or finding that right partner. And secondly, that when you're in your 30s or potentially even into your early 40s, our only resort is expensive fertility treatments. And in my opinion, that is not our only resort. That's a great additional realm that we can use if we need it. But that should be the very last option. Taking that time to prepare and do everything up front to really optimize the body should be the first thing that we all focus on.
Yeah, I totally agree. So in that same, we've touched on it a little bit, but it's not something that's super widely discussed among like friend groups or family or providers pre-pregnancy planning. Why do you think that is? Why do you think we're not really thinking about what we should be doing ahead of pregnancy? What do you think is kind of the missing piece there? Why isn't it something that's widely talked about?
I think it's are also partially reflective of also what you kind of previously mentioned of just the way our medical system is designed. And unfortunately, we are not a preventative system. We are a treatment system. I mean, it's getting more widely known and accepted of preventative, right? Even think of it, look at the strides and leaps that we've made with mental health in the last 10, 15, 20 years. And, I think pregnancy is just, it's coming. It's a little bit behind. So it's just, it's something, like I said, that we treat, and it's not something that we do up front to prevent. And in my opinion, just doing all of this preventative preconception work is first off preventative, so that you don't have to go down the route of fertility treatments. Because when you do go to the doctor and you're telling them that you're having trouble getting pregnant, the only solution that they have for you is to come back in a year. And if you're still not pregnant, we're going to refer you to fertility treatments. There's no discussion on lifestyle, on what you can do to optimize your eggs, optimize your sperm, how to change your nutrition. Like, these are all components that are going to reflect how your body is and whether or not you are able to conceive naturally. And so, like, there's just this massive gap. And I think really it has to do just with the medical system and model that we live in, which is unfortunate. But we do now have so many platforms like podcasts, like this podcast. We have the World Wide Web, we have internet. We now have this kind of global connection that we're able to now voice our opinions and be able to share our knowledge. And, it is, as a practitioner and being in this space, I do see it growing. It's still in its infancy, and it's going to take a little bit of time. And another component to that is, I think as well, I can't remember the stat off my head, but I think it was from like 2000 to 2014 or 2010. I think there was like a 25 or 30% increase of women having babies later in life, in their 30s and even into their 40s. So, with that comes a little bit more inherent challenges with getting pregnant. So I think also, maybe we just haven't caught up to the times yet. And, it was typically, I guess, if you're in your 20s, you just kind of pop out babies easily, no big deal, no problem. But now that so many people are waiting longer, it can take doesn't mean we can't get pregnant healthily and conceive naturally and have a natural birth. It just means it might take a little bit longer. There's extra things you need to think about. And I just think we're still at such the infancy that we haven't had time to kind of catch up to be able to um, have this spread, throughout culture and throughout media. So this is widely known and talked about. But that is my goal for us to get there. I would love to be a part of getting there.
Yeah, I'd love that too. And I'm excited. Again, I'm very excited to have you on to be sharing about this and kind of give people more options. In that I've spoken with, I talked with my friends and family ad nauseum about like pregnancy and babies and everything. So I have heard from some people who are like, okay, I'm ready to get pregnant. Let's start trying. Don't get pregnant on the first couple times. And I actually know someone specifically who did one of the modern fertility tests, the company
Yes.
where you can like do the testing, send it out, they'll send you your results back. And uh, they had said, I got my results back, and there's no way I would have ever gotten pregnant on my own had I not saw what my levels were, went to my doctor or whatever practitioner they were working with to say, hey, these are my levels. How do we get them to a optimal or normal range? And had they not found that modern fertility, they would have been just trying and trying for, what is it, 6 months to a year before they're like, let's do
Yep.
fertility treatment. So, think
1 year. Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
there's a
It's a
lot of
1 year mark.
options. There's a lot of options in the middle. And so, with that being said, in your experience working with your clients over the last few years, what are some of the benefits of preconception planning?
100%. Yeah, no, this is a big one. So my clients will actually tell me this verbatim themselves, because first off, once you do get pregnant, first trimester is usually filled with a lot of nausea, fatigue, and exhaustion. And the last thing you want to do when you feel that way, you're in an uncomfortable state, is very hard to stick to a clean eating, healthy routine and lifestyle. The last thing you want to put into your body is a green, healthy salad. Sometimes the only thing you can keep down is a piece of toast with butter, but or like a piece of pizza or something, right? And so the benefit, first off, is that it is going to equip you and build up your nutrient stores and get your body to a healthy, foundational, strong place so that your body can have a healthy pregnancy and carry that healthy baby to term. So think about building a house. You don't want to build a house on sand without its strong foundational structure. It's the exact same thing when women carries, a woman is creating a body inside her own body. A woman is creating life that is being carried inside of her body for 9 months. Like that is, if we stop to think about that, that's a long time. And it requires a ton of energy. And so, and to be able to prepare the body up front, give it the nutrients it needs, build, make sure that our physical structure is strong, make sure that our hormones are up to par. It is then going to carry you through to a healthy pregnancy with much less pregnancy complications. And in addition to that, a lot of women experience postpartum depression, postpartum challenges. And that's also because baby is going to steal everything from you. You are the host. Baby is now inside of you, and it doesn't care if it leaves you depleted along the way, but it needs to grow that little precious life. So it's going to steal all your nutrient stores, and that leaves you depleted along the way. So if you go into pregnancy with low reserves, lower stores, then you are now coming out on the other end completely depleted. And what happens after you give birth? Now you have to be this mom and you have to care for this baby. You have to breastfeed. You have to be up a million times in the middle of the night. Like it's utterly exhausting. So taking that time up front not only kind of prepares your body and your mind the entire way through, but it also equips you with the knowledge and the tools and the resources so that you know how to care for yourself and your baby when you end up delivering the baby and starting this new little family of yours. So it's, in my opinion, it's the most important time and most important part to focus on so that, you can conceive and get pregnant and hopefully naturally and have a healthy natural birth. If you do have to move to fertility treatments, because sometimes that just is the case and that's okay. Fertility treatments, first off, are expensive and it's not a guaranteed success for a live birth. As a matter of fact, one round of IVF is only about 25 to 35% success rate for live birth. So if you're going to fork out $20,000 to $30,000 to do IVF, don't you want to be in the most optimal state so that you can, get your best chance for success? So that's why upfront preconception, in my opinion, is the most important to set that foundation and to have that kind of roadmap on how to heal your body, take care of your body, feed your body and your baby for pretty much for the rest of your life moving forward.
Yeah, I read something recently that was saying in the first trimester, one of the reasons you're so exhausted is you're building a whole new organ that you didn't have before, which is the placenta, which feeds and nourishes your baby. And obviously, I knew that that happened, but I didn't really think of the fact that, like, you're creating a whole new organ. Your body is for 9 months caring for a baby, caring for you, getting, what is it, like 3/4 of your blood is like doubled because
Almost.
of like you're just growing in so many different ways. So I imagine that kind of getting your body primed for that and your mental primed for that is of benefit because your body's doing so much hard work that maybe your symptoms are less, or maybe you're not as exhausted as you might have been had you not known this was coming or had your body like ready in like fighting shape, if you will, to have a baby.
I like to think about it as your body is training for the Olympics, right? Like you're preparing your body for this like 9 month Olympic marathon of growing this baby. So that's, yes, and your blood volume doubles by the time I think you're in second trimester. So
Yeah. Yeah, and I
mhm.
know how hard it is on your body to do a nutrition change. Like, if anybody has done a Whole30 in their life, they know it's like the migraines and the, like, hunger pains and all of that stuff, so I can't imagine doing that while pregnant as well. So one of the other things that I wanted to ask you about is the difference between optimal body health for pregnancy and normal range for pregnancy. I know most like OBs or sometimes midwives, depending, will say you're young, you have no pre-existing conditions, you should be ready to go. You're normal as you can be for your age group and whatever it might be. But what's the difference between being like you're normal and good to go and being optimal for pregnancy?
So let me think about how to answer this in a way that, because there's so much information that there's so many different variables that we can talk about of what's normal and what's optimal. First, I'd love to talk about maybe just some generic blood labs that you can get done beforehand, because we can check certain nutrient stores in the body that are required for a healthy pregnancy. And so, I mean, I have a psychology background, so I had to do a course in statistics at one point. But for anybody who did statistics, or maybe if you didn't do statistics, just understanding that kind of bell curve and that range of knowing when, this is the normal range of what people are in. Now you can't see me, but my hands are doing this whole thing. So I've got my hands going nice and wide, showing like this is a normal range. And a normal range, let's say for certain blood labs, can be anywhere from like 5 up to like 300. And that is a massive, massive range. And so what I like to do is I like to kind of narrow that range of a normal range, and let's look at something that is optimal. So when I work with my clients, immediately one of the first things that I get them to do is to get their vitamin D levels checked, their vitamin B12 levels checked, their iron, their TSH, their thyroid stimulating hormone, and sometimes progesterone and estrogen as well. It just depends on kind of where they are on the journey, where they are in the process. Now, those three key nutrients, vitamin D, B12, and iron, what the doctor will say is normal is a very, very, very wide range. So let's say for iron, they're saying the normal range is between like 30 and 100, and you're at 31, they're going to say, okay, well, this is normal. We're good to go. In my opinion, that is not normal. We need to bump you up to at least 60. That is the lowest end of optimal that I would like to see. So depending on what we're talking about, there are certain nutrient levels. I'll give you my just basic, if you're listening and you want to write these down, you can always pause and write this down, but I'll give you a few of my ranges for optimal for those three key nutrients, because those are so important for preparing for pregnancy and also for helping prevent chance of miscarriage. So for vitamin D, we want to see levels between 45 and 80 ng-ml. So there's kind of a metric at the end, right? The ng-ml. We want to see 45 to 80. That is the optimal range for vitamin D. For ferritin, which is also known as iron, which is absolutely crucial and needed because the blood volume doubles, right? It's part of the proliferation and the red blood cell count. We want to see levels between 60 and 90 ng-ml for iron. And then for vitamin B12, we want to see anything greater than 1,000 PMOL. PMOL-L. These are three key nutrients that I always look for upfront. So if we're talking about kind of optimal hard quantitative numbers, those are three key ones that I look for as well. I also want to talk a little bit about sperm. We talk about women a lot. We talk about the female body a lot, but we know that conception is 50% egg and it's 50% sperm. Now, we put a lot of pressure on ourselves as women because we carry that baby, but I don't think a lot of us really kind of take into account the importance of optimal sperm as well. And we are currently living in a time in 2021 where it's actually kind of called a sperm crisis. Since I don't remember the specific research author, but I know I've read this in multiple places. There is a book out there called Countdown, which I can give you lots more of information about this. But right now, I think our sperm quality and quantity has declined by 70% since the 90s, which is dramatic.
Yeah, that's
crazy. It's crazy. I mean, just what's in our water supply, what's in our food supply, how much more xenoestrogens are out there in plastics, chemicals in our household and personal hygiene products. All of this is having a major, major impact on our hormones and our reproductive health, both male and both female. So for sperm, when anybody gets sperm testing done, because a lot of people will now test their sperm, I also want to share that the World Health Organization has set this new lower limit of what is quote unquote called normal for sperm testing. And when I get my clients to test their sperm health, I'm looking for three key parameters here. The first one is concentration. So how much sperm are you getting in an ejaculate? The second one is motility. How well does that swim sperm? How well does that sperm swim? And the last one is morphology. What does that sperm look like? Naturally, a sperm should have one head and one tail. That's what morphology is. Most sperm have like two heads, one tail, half a head, right? So just as an example, the World Health Organization has set a limit of normal for what's called 4% morphology. So they're saying if you have 4% morphology in your concentration of sperm, then you're good. Your sperm is normal. But let me clarify, that actually means 96% of that sperm morphology is abnormal. 96% is abnormal. Now, what I've seen through my research and my practice is I want to see optimal morphology numbers be between 12 and 15%. So we're not necessarily looking at like 80% morphology, but we're looking at 12 to 15% morphology because, concentration is in the millions. There's tons and tons of sperm in one ejaculate, but 4%, it's just too small in my opinion. So for morphology, we're looking for 12 to 15% morphology. For motility, we're looking for 63% motility. The World Health Organization has set a new lower limit at 40%. So if they see anything at 40% for motility, like, yeah, you're normal. My clients will always come to me and like, yeah, my husband had his sperm tested. They said it's normal. I always say, let me see. I look at this sperm and there's always room for improvement, always room for improvement. And so these are just little examples of how we can see what is normal and what is optimal, especially if we're looking at like hard data and like hard numbers.
Yeah, and what I think is important to mention is that just because preconception planning isn't like widely utilized or discussed doesn't mean that there's not evidence for each section of things you're looking at. So like obviously there's some evidence to show that sperm health matters and what optimal percentages are. So it's not just obviously there's some anecdotal stuff that is helpful to the main points, but there's evidence to show that there's reason to pre-plan. And I think we never talk about sperm health unless there's like a major infertility issue and it's half of the DNA. So I think it is important to talk a little bit more about, considering we speak nothing of it usually.
Yes.
So let's get into the 4 R's of preconception. I know this is something that you've kind of constructed over the years. And so I'm going to let you roll into coaching mode and just kind of share what the 4 R's are, some examples, whatever you want to share.
Awesome. Thanks. Yeah. No, I love talking about this stuff. I can talk forever. So I'll do my best to keep it concise, give you enough good points that you can digest, and no pun intended, because we're going to be talking a lot about nutrition. So I started seeing themes across the board as I was working with clients in this practice. And so what I ended up doing was to really help people kind of consolidate everything and remember the key principles that they needed to follow and do in order to get themselves to, their healthiest body to get pregnant. I've come up with this 4R method, and we're going to specifically talk about it in terms of nutrition. So the first R is about removing. It's all about removing the inflammatory toxic foods that are bogging down your hormones and that are wreaking havoc on your gut health. And we'll talk about, let's go through maybe 4 or 5 of these key food groups. And so the first one is caffeine. Caffeine is a psychoactive stimulant, and that is not the best thing for our hormones, especially as we're trying to conceive. It's an appetite suppressant, so it also doesn't allow your body to naturally tell you when it's hungry, and it really throws off your blood sugar levels. And it's depending on how much you're having every single day, it's something, especially when you're trying to conceive, and if you're having trouble, it's one of the first things I say, we need to get rid of it or greatly reduce it as much as we can. A lot of my clients roll their eyes at me when I tell them this, but once they do it, they're like, wow, Nora, like my life has changed and it's so different. And I never realized I can feel so good. So we have to remember that caffeine is like artificial energy. This is not our natural energy. And it's such a culture in our society that we just don't think about what's life like without coffee or caffeine. That's my first one. So sometimes it takes clients or people a little bit of time. As I say, okay, maybe like cut it in half. Let's cut it in half for the first couple of weeks. And then from there, people are like, but I just need my morning cup of coffee. It's my ritual. Okay, so then go to decaf. If you're going to have decaf, there's still a little bit of caffeine, but not nearly as much as regular. And if you do go to decaf, I encourage you to look for something called Swiss water processed decaf, because it's the least amount of kind of chemicals and toxins in there, because it has to go through quite a bit of a process for strip the caffeine from the bean. The second one is industrial seed oils. These run rampant in our food supply everywhere, especially now with our grocery stores. And we've got all those aisles. Think about all the boxed goods and the canned goods, and everything you see in the aisles of the grocery store will likely have an industrial seed oil in it. This is palm oil, rapeseed oil. This is canola oil. This is safflower oil. These oils are toxic for our hormones, and they have been greatly processed in a way that wreaks havoc on our body. So remove industrial seed oils as much as you can, which means think about how much you are eating out, because restaurants, and when you do eat out, majority of the time they're using canola oil or some sort of industrial seed oil because it's cheap. It's cheap and the margins at restaurants are very, very small. So everything is a business, needs to make money, right? So think about how much you're eating out. In addition to that, also just be mindful of what you're cooking with at home. When you're cooking at high heat, you want to stick to avocado oil, coconut oil, or grape seed oil. Those are great 3 high heat cooking oils to use. And in addition to that, think about the boxed goods and foods that you're eating. So if you go right now and you've got maybe cereal or cookies or some sort of cracker in your cupboard, go over, just grab it, take it out, look at the ingredient list. And I can almost guarantee you, you will see safflower oil on there, palm oil in there, maybe canola oil. There will be an industrial seed oil. They're hidden everywhere and they wreak havoc on our hormones. Caffeine, industrial seed oils. And the third one I'd like to talk about is soy, unfermented soy specifically, because soy is it can have an estrogenic effect on the body if it is not fermented. And so, I don't remember, I think it was in the 90s, if I remember when I was maybe in my teens, in the 90s, soy became so popular. It was like soy everything, eat soybeans, have soy milk, have tofu. Yep. Soy was everywhere. And it can also wreak havoc on our hormones. So I would say be mindful of the amount of soy that you are consuming. And if you are consuming soy, you want to stick to fermented soy, which is like tempeh, miso, any soy milk, please toss. Throw it in the garbage. Do not buy soy milk. Throw that away. But tempeh, miso is great. And another soy, like I wouldn't go for edamame. Those are not fermented. They're not fermented. So any unfermented soy in the garbage, remove. And then last but not least, I mean, these are pretty generic ones out there that most people know, like reduce your refined sugar consumption, reducing your alcohol consumption. And I also talk about a lot about gluten. Now, this, I always say it depends. If you have a thyroid problem, you need to completely omit gluten. If if you're diagnosed with a thyroid issue, please do not have gluten. It is going to just wreak havoc on your thyroid even more. So, those I think are pretty standard. Most people know stay away as much as you can from refined and processed sugar. So that's part of the remove category.
I think those are all a really good start. I think although some of them seem hard to eliminate, for me, it's the coffee, sugar, and alcohol. So I think I'm sure in working with you, there would be a individualized way to slowly remove those from your diet or find alternatives to each of them. So while they all seem maybe difficult, I think there's absolutely a way that you can start to slowly integrate new things or slowly remove some from your diet.
No, that's a great point, Jessica. And I want to also just make mention of this to anybody who's listening and just having this moment of like jaw dropping, eyes big and wide, like, oh my God, what am I doing? My body. Just remember the body is brilliant. The body is always healing and cleaning itself. And if this is something that you're looking to do for yourself, please do not put pressure on yourself. Take time, right? Come up with your strategy. I'm going to pick one and cut it in half, right? Or reduce it by 30%. But we need to remember that it's not about diving into the deep end head first. It takes time to build new habits. It takes time for our body to adjust and change. And so by putting all this pressure on ourselves and having these grandiose expectations, most of the time we're just going to fail. And then we feel like crap when we fail. And I also like to say 80-20 rule. It's about the 80-20 rule. I am not perfect by any means, and I never expect anybody to be perfect because that is not feasible. So 80-20 rule, maybe 90-10 rule, but I love my pizza. I love my ice cream. I love my phyllo pastry and I love my chocolate croissants. So I definitely eat those, but I'm mindful of when that happens.
Yeah. And I think so. The last series I just did was about goal setting in the new year and how to slowly make attainable changes. And it's about having a big goal, but making tiny little small goals within it. SMART goals, the big SMART goal idea. But so maybe it is eliminating all of it by the end of the year. In the first 2 months, you're going to get rid of XYZ over a small period of time. So it's these big lofty goals can be put into smaller goals and not like
into little boxes.
Yeah. Yeah. You don't have to
Yes.
jump head first. So yeah, I think that's great.
Yeah, I needed to make that point because when I start saying this, some people, I see some people's eyes are like, oh my God, oh my God.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, no, 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 it's
Yeah.
okay. It's okay. I'm just educating you.
Yeah.
Just educating you.
Yeah, and I imagine it's overwhelming for me to look at and be like, "Okay, I have all of this on a pretty regular basis." So, but just knowing that, like, it doesn't have to be all at once. It could be a slow progression. And like you said, our bodies are pretty brilliant and can, pretty quickly figure out what we're doing. So I think, those are all very doable things to start to eliminate.
And so the second are then, so once we removed kind of what is bogging the body down, we now want to replace it with fertility dense nutrient dense fertility foods. And I'll give you a handful of kind of food groups that are good for this. The first one is organ meats. Now, I know that also sounds daunting and scary because I hate organ meats. I cannot stomach the taste of liver. Wish I could, but I just can't. But they are one of the best fertility foods is organ meats. So, if you like liver, mainly liver, but any sort of organ meat is actually really, really good for fertility. I would encourage you to eat that if you like it. If you don't, you can always find liver pills. They're readily available now online. Vital Proteins has a really good one, has a really good liver pill. You can just get them on Amazon, and I just take my liver pills daily. And I know I'm like, okay, I checked that box. That's good to go. I don't have to force feed myself liver. And the next one is, and this probably won't surprise you, is the dark leafy greens, but it holds true. They're filled with folate, fiber, and chlorophyll. And these are three key nutrients that are essential for preparing for pregnancy. We want to make sure that we have adequate fiber in our body to move our bowels. We'll actually talk about that in the third R. But we also want to make sure that we're getting adequate amounts of folate. And I want to differentiate between folate and folic acid because a lot of us know that folic acid is this like prenatal pill. We all have to take folic acid. Yes, exactly. Like take your prenatal and take your folic acid. But folic acid is actually the synthetic man-made version of folate. Folate is actually vitamin B9. So it's a group of the B vitamins and it is absorbed in the body in the small intestines. Now, when you take folic acid, so if you think of like fortified foods, right? They fortify milk with folic acid. They fortify cereal with folic acid. Again, that folic acid is man-made in a lab. That is not coming from its natural food sources. And when you ingest folic acid, your body actually has to process it in a much different way. Your body has to kind of process it through the liver, and then you're not necessarily absorbing what you should be absorbing for folate. So I would always suggest get your folate from foods first, and then as well, lots of prenatal vitamins, and there's lots of wonderful supplements out there that do have folate, not folic acid. So that's just something to keep in mind and maybe think of as you kind of move through this journey. So we want to eat dark leafy greens. We want to eat organ meat foods and lots of vitamin A and vitamin D rich foods. These are really, really good for egg and sperm health. And these come in lots of eggs. Pasture raised eggs are brilliant for fertility, both for men and for women as well. Shellfish is also really good. Animal based grass fed animal protein. I said animal twice there, but animal grass fed protein is really good. Poultry, beef, and lots of just pretty much as well. This is kind of like the generic, but just eating like a rainbow of foods, lots of antioxidant and anti-inflammatory rich fruits and vegetables, which are filled with fiber. It's really thinking about making sure that you're getting a well-rounded, balanced diet with the animal protein, with healthy, good fats, and making sure you're getting that fiber from the fruits and veggies that you're eating throughout the day.
I think it's everyone's first inclination to be like, yeah, I could eat all of these things, but I could also go on nowfoods.com and find a supplement for it. What are your general thoughts on supplementing for like the leafy greens and doing like a green powder or doing I don't love eggs and shellfish. Could I do a vitamin A or D supplement? What are your thoughts on having like replacing in your replace section, having the actual food versus like the convenience of the supplement? What are the differences there?
Yeah, that's a great question because a lot of people do ask that question as well. And I did kind of allude to it with the liver as well, because I'm like, I can't eat liver, but the liver capsules are desiccated, like it's actually ground up desiccated liver. So I'm actually eating the liver itself. It's not like a synthetic form of it. But generally speaking, when it comes to supplements, I want you to think, let's think about baking a cake. And in order to get this beautiful, delicious tasting cake, we need to have all of those ingredients to make the cake. Now, the supplements are just the icing on the cake. So always I say, try and get your sources from food sources first. No matter what, try and get from food sources first. But depending, for vitamin D, for instance, I live in Toronto, Canada. I'm in the Northern Hemisphere. 6 months out of the year, we have very short days and very little sun. So no matter what, I'm always supplementing with vitamin D throughout the winter. I'm also eating lots of vitamin D rich foods. So I think it's very individual depending on you. So that's why I say get those nutrient levels checked at the beginning, see where your baseline is. Then you can add the foods. So always go with the foods first. And if you need to have an extra, it's called like a therapeutic dose. If you need to dose a little bit more because you're deficient in a certain nutrient, then go ahead and get that supplement. But for instance, like a greens powder as well. Some people are like, I don't like vegetables. I won't eat vegetables. I mean, if that's the case, a greens powder is going to be better than not eating any vegetables. So then go for the greens powder. So that's kind of like the way I like to think about how to incorporate supplements. I don't want you to think about it as being a complete alternative and replacement for the food. I want you to think about it as being like this little added bonus that you're giving your body to kind of top up what maybe you might be lacking or missing a little bit from the foods.
Yeah, that's a great rule of thumb. I think we're always going for convenience first, but I think you can definitely mix the two and test your levels, see where you're at, get the foods going, and then maybe get your levels tested again to see where you're at. And maybe you do need to do some supplementation. So I think a rule of thumb of going with the green foods first and then checking out the supplementation would be great.
Yes.
All right. What is your next R?
Yeah, the next R is repair. So when I first graduated from nutrition school, my practice mainly focused on gut health. I was obsessed with gut health. I mean, I still am, but I'm now more obsessed with reproductive health. But my first love in this space was gut health. Because I learned all about the importance of gut health and how it was literally the cornerstone of your overall health. It's the seat of your immune system, of your metabolism, of your mental health. The gut is so important. So I say the third R is about repairing the gut so that your body can assimilate and digest the foods that you're eating. Because we all know this term, well, you are what you eat, but that term is not a complete statement. You are not only what you eat, but you are also what your body absorbs, what it assimilates, and what it excretes. Because if you have compromised digestion, you could be eating the healthiest diet in the world, but your body might not be able to assimilate all of those nutrients. If you have leaky gut, you've got holes in your gut is inflamed, and you're having diarrhea every day, or you're not pooping and you're constipated for 3 days, that is going to be a big problem for your health and your hormones. So I'll give you a few key foods that I love with repairing the gut. The first one is fermented foods. All fermented foods are beautiful for digestion. Now, we have an organism inside of our belly, which is called our microbiome. And our microbiome makes up all the bacteria in our gut. We have good bacteria, we have bad bacteria. And there's about 3.5 to 4.5 pounds. So if you think about like a 4-pound weight, there is that much bacteria that sits in your gut. And those bacteria need to be in what's called a symbiotic relationship. So we either have symbiosis, where there's a healthy balance between good and bad bacteria in the gut, or we have dysbiosis. Most of the time, that's usually we have more bad bacteria and less good bacteria. And that is going to cause problem with digestion. It's going to wreak havoc on our hormones. It causes problem with our mental health. So in order to really kind of help proliferate the good bacteria in the gut, that's when I say eat fermented foods. So fermented foods such as sauerkraut, kimchi, kefir, they all have natural, good, healthy probiotics in it that will replenish the gut flora. And if you've been on birth control, if you're taking medication, if you've been on lots of antibiotics, this just kills the bacteria in the gut. So there's a lot to think about when it comes to gut health. We've got to look at your health history. You've got to look at, how, stress is also creates dysbiosis in the gut. Coffee, sugar, alcohol creates dysbiosis in the gut. So now you can see how all of these R's start to kind of roll into each other. But yeah, repairing is all about making sure that you are creating that environment in your gut that is going to allow it to thrive. And then that's just going to allow the rest of your body to optimize at its optimal level all the time. So fermented foods is a big one. Do you eat fermented foods at all?
I don't. The only fermented food that I used to have kefir all the time, and I just
Hmm.
don't now. But the one thing I love is kombucha, and
I was going to say kombucha. Yes.
it's anytime I have a stomach ache, I'll go to Whole Foods or Fruitful Yield, which are in state like natural health food stores, and it like pretty much goes away. So I'm a big proponent for kefir. My husband though does eat a lot of kimchi and sauerkraut and like loves fermented foods. So, but I think we hear a
Yes.
lot about gut health and how like leaky gut and how we need to improve our gut biome. But there's like so much information out there that it's hard to be like, all right, what do I do with this information? So I love these examples of what we can do to keep moving in the right direction on that gut biome part of things.
And collagen is really good for healing the lining of the leaky gut as well. So, bone broth, having a cup of bone broth every day. If you make that on your own, I would stay maybe be mindful of not buying like the Tetra Pak in the grocery store
Yeah,
because
it's very
that's like
different
I'm
when you
talking
make it at
about.
home.
Yes, homemade bone broth is the best. It's like I call it the magic fertility healing elixir. It's so good for your hormones. It's so good for your gut. And collagen is a really good nutrient for your gut. So bone broth, collagen, lots of fermented foods, and then just if and staying away from the foods that I've say that removed also help repair the gut. Right? You got to take out what's bogging it down, and then
Right.
again, the body knows how to heal itself. So.
Right. Awesome. And then what's your last R?
So the last are now that we've removed and we've replaced and we're starting to repair the gut, now it's all about rebalancing those hormones so we can get that positive pregnancy test. So the rebalancing your hormones, I'll give you my first main principle that I think a lot of people take for granted and don't know how to do to the best of their ability, which is balancing their blood sugar. So I think balancing your blood sugar is one of the foundations to balancing your hormones. And balancing blood sugar really means that you're eating balanced meals and that you're eating consistently throughout the day. Now, when you're preparing your body for pregnancy, this is not the time to be doing all those crazy fad diets. This is the time to start kind of getting back to baseline because when you do get pregnant, you're going to need to balance your blood sugar even more, as you're now carrying this baby in your belly, because you're going to be hungry every hour and a half to 2 hours. So set up the foundation from the beginning. And my general rule of thumb for balancing your blood sugar is number one is always, so when you wake up in the morning, start your day with water and lemon, stay away from that coffee, and then eat within 30, 60 minutes of waking. And you want to make sure you're having a protein and fat rich breakfast because that is going to start leveling off your blood sugar throughout the day. Most people will wake up, they'll have maybe a little bit of water, go to the bathroom, brush your teeth, do their thing. And then what do they have? Coffee. What does coffee do? It suppresses the appetite. So then you're not hungry. And it's a diuretic. So it dehydrates you. But when we wake up in the morning, our bodies are actually fasted and they're dehydrated. So you need to fuel it with adequate food and you need to nourish it with adequate hydration. So coffee is doing the complete opposite. So if you're not ready to completely remove the coffee, then I say, okay, no problem, but still start your day with water and lemon, have your breakfast first, and then have your coffee after your breakfast. And that's going to help level out and stabilize the blood sugar. So think about your breakfast in the morning, lots of fat and protein, and then eating every 3 to 4 hours, not going whole 8 hours of the whole day and not eating because your blood sugar is just going to plummet. And then that's going to start the cascade of cravings. It's going to affect your mood. It's going to impact the quality of your sleep. And so eating every 3 to 4 hours and making sure you're always having some sort of fat and protein with like a carbohydrate rich snack. So if you're having a banana, make sure you have that banana with maybe 1 or 2 tablespoons of almond butter. Or if you're going to have a piece of toast, make sure you're having like it with some avocado. So always pairing a carb meal. Like if you're having oatmeal for breakfast, don't just have oatmeal and fruit. That's all carbs. Put some collagen powder in there, throw some hemp seeds in there, sprinkle it with 2 tablespoons of sunflower seeds. Always make sure you're adding adequate protein and fat.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that I just recently learned about was how your blood sugar throughout your pregnancy is going to affect your glucose testing towards the end. So I didn't know a ton about glucose testing. There's someone that I follow on Instagram who tested super high. She's a practitioner, so she was able to test herself a little bit more frequently and was a little more educated on the topic. But she tested her blood levels, like she would wear like a glucose monitor on her through pregnancy. So she would be testing all day long and kind of strategically mapped out her meals and her timing, and was able to she had high blood sugar, and then was able to figure out how to adjust her food and timing and all of that to be able to pass her glucose test. And it was very interesting to see. She always said, everybody's different. You're not going to look like this, but this is what I've done to see what I can do to adjust my food and timing. And it was just mind blowing to me how much the foods you're choosing to eat affects your blood sugar. It's a no brainer, I think, when you start to learn more about it, but I had no idea.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It will be a game changer for your whole day, for the quality of your life, the amount of energy that you have. Like, once you start kind of starting to open, once you start, or not open, once you start going down the rabbit hole of all this, you're just like, whoa, I didn't know all this. But then it becomes so empowering because you're really now just creating this lifestyle that is going to give you lots of energy. It's going to, our bodies were designed to thrive. I think most of us operate on survival mode, not thriving mode throughout the day. And so by choosing the right quality foods, foods become us, right? And the digestive system is the interface between the foods that we put onto our body and then how our body works every single day. So by making sure that we're putting in good quality foods and the right amounts of protein, fat, and carbs, it's kind of like the puzzle pieces start to come together, and then the consequence of that is just optimal health. And it feels so great that once you don't really ever want to go back the other way.
And I think that goes back to the difference between normal and optimal, is that, like, yeah, you can eat whatever you want, and you're still going to be fine. Your levels might test in a normal range. You might feel fine. Your body's doing what it needs to, but then seeing what your body looks and feels like when you are optimal, I think is like the key indicator of the differences between normal, statistically normal, and optimal.
And that's precisely what I was saying about my clients with the caffeine. And they're like, I never thought in a million years I would ever stop caffeine. But now that I'm stopping and I've stopped, I don't even want to go back to it. So yes.
So, do you have anything else you want to mention about your 4 Rs, or do you want to move on to a couple more questions?
No, that's good for the 4 Rs.
So, what are some of the challenges you're noticing that women are facing with preconception planning?
I think the biggest challenge is a lot of people just don't know what to do next, and they feel powerless at the mercy of their doctors who don't give them much more advice other than taking a prenatal supplement. And this leaves them feeling just kind of deflated and hopeless. And I want people to know that there are resources and there are practitioners out there, and to always think about getting a second opinion and always listen to your gut. I think really, you're so many women also just don't feel that their body is in a state where they can conceive naturally, but yet their doctors tell them everything looks normal and everything is fine. So the only next option is fertility treatment. And that's how a lot of my clients have found me, because they've refused to take that for answers and done a lot of digging and research and found different holistic practitioners that offer different services that allow them the opportunity to dive into their health in a holistic perspective that allows them to really get to the root cause of problems, and then consequently not only get pregnant, but also then have better health than when they did coming in.
Yeah, and that's great advice. I am a huge proponent for finding practitioners that kind of align with your lifestyle and what works for you. And I think one of the biggest things about that is, like you said, going with your gut. If you feel like your practitioner is not giving you the information you're asking for, the information you need, or you just have a gut feeling it's not the right person for you, there's so many other practitioners out there. I know it's very difficult to find, and you might need to go and do some research and find someone outside of the the medical space. But I'm a huge proponent as well for going with your gut and saying, hey, this isn't working out. I need to find something else, and starting to do your own research. obviously being smart about the people that you're getting information from and making sure it's a reputable source. But yeah, I can definitely see all the conflicting information of I don't feel like I am physically ready to have a baby, but my doctor's telling me I'm fine. I don't know that I agree, but I also don't know where to go to next. So I think the work that you're doing is great because you are that middle ground where it's like, okay, you found yourself here, what do we do next? So I'm not shocked that a lot of people are like, I don't know where to start because it is overwhelming. There's so much information out there.
Yeah, there's a lot, and they're contradicting, and then there's gaps, and they're just not sure what to do. So that's when I take everything and I personalize it to their body and to their health, and then at the same time they're educated, they're given the tools and the resources so that they can, after our time is done working together, they just now have this roadmap and know how to fuel themselves, how to heal themselves, and to now feed their new family. Because you've got a little kid and this little baby now, what are lots of kids eating? They eat frozen chicken nuggets, they eat goldfish crackers, they eat formula foods. It's like, no, no.
Yeah.
So it's, I always say, like, you're investing in, like, not only your health but in your entire future family's health.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it is like a whole mindset shift, but I think it is not only helpful in preconception planning throughout your pregnancy and into your pregnancy, but like long term after you have this whole new set of skills and education that will be helpful long term.
Exactly.
In that same vein, can we talk a little bit about changing the fertility and pregnancy narrative? I know you work with some people, and maybe I don't want to go as far as say specialize if that's not correct, but in women over 35 who are in the medical model considered geriatric, which like hurts my heart to even say. But can we talk a little bit about your perspective on things with fertility and pregnancy and kind of the narrative that exists now versus the challenging of the narrative that you're doing in your work?
Yeah, I think, again, the medical model does look at it as a geriatric pregnancy. I mean, I'm a 38-year-old woman myself. I deeply desire a family and want kids of my own, and I don't have any yet. And, I still am very hopeful that it is going to happen for me. Either going to do it on my own or finding the right partner. For me, I would say, I mean, I believe in my body, and I believe that, I believe my body can have healthy babies later in life. And I think a lot of it really has to do with your mindset and not letting lots of other kind of fear kind of seep in. Although we have to all go through our different processes to get there. There's still many days and times where I feel anxious about where I am in life, and wanting to be a mom, and my time is running out. But I mean, at the end of the day, I think because even more and more women are waiting longer to have babies, I think it just starting to become a little bit more common. It's starting to become it's being talked about more. And I think really, to change the narrative, we just have to keep talking about it, and running podcasts like this and having these open, honest, and vulnerable conversations, and people sharing how they feel if they're comfortable with it. This is vulnerable stuff. People are talking about their personal lives, and we obviously have a plan for ourselves and how we want our lives to run and how we want things to roll out. But what's the saying? Human plan, God laughs. Like, we really have control to a certain extent, but we also don't really have control. So I think the short answer to the question is, how do we change the fertility narrative? I think we just have to keep talking about it. And we've got a lot of wonderful platforms out there like social media, podcasts, and a lot more people are talking about it. But the first step is talking about it and sharing stories, I think. And letting people know that you can have healthy babies into your late 30s and early 40s naturally. And if you need to use fertility treatment, that's okay too. It's wonderful that we live in a time that exists, but at the same time, that doesn't negate the fact that you should also prepare your body just like you would if you were having a natural baby. So, yeah, that's the answer to that question.
Yeah, and I think I personally have definitely been victim to the if you're over 30 having kids, you're old. And not that I feel that about other people that like I'll be turning 30 this year and at the beginning of the year was having this like life crisis about we're not ready to have kids yet. But I'm going to be 30. When I was in high school, I thought I'd be done having kids by the time I was 30. And so over all of that now, but just this immediate thought that like if you're over, like if you're 30, you're getting old. Whereas like now that I'm at that position, I'm like, I feel like a baby still. Like there's
We're
so
just
much.
starting our lives.
Yeah, and
Yes,
there's
this
so
is
much.
30s are an incredible time.
Yeah, and if you're still ovulating and you're still menstruating and your hormones are in check and you're doing all the right work, there's no reason that you can't. So I think it's important to mention that like fertility treatment is an incredible opportunity for older women to conceive beyond years that they thought they'd be able to. But we can also like there's stuff that we can do to one ensure that it is successful. Not ensure, you can never ensure, but to help it be more successful with some of these things that you've mentioned. But then also it helps to change the narrative as well that like you don't always need that treatment. It doesn't need to be the first thing. So yeah, I'm definitely interested in continuing to talk more about it and like the pressures that come along with just like changing of your age when like you haven't changed, your body hasn't changed, but like your age has changed and how that looks in like a medical standpoint. So yeah, I've definitely fallen victim to that, but I think it's important to talk about because the people who are like younger and thinking that like, "Oh, I'm out of college, I'm gonna get married and have a job," and just the way that our world is now is not that way. Like, maybe 20 years ago, people were graduating, getting married, finding a job, having kids, staying home. Like, it's not the same world anymore, so I think we kinda need to
It is
adjust
not.
to that. So,
Yes.
if you are up for it for a few more minutes to take a couple questions from Instagram.
Sure.
So it's nothing too crazy or in depth. So one of the questions is I have an irregular cycle. Is there anything I will need to do differently for preconception planning?
So, how irregular is the cycle would be my first question because, again, our bodies as women are in semi continuous states of pregnancy and our bodies are designed to procreate. And in order to procreate, we need to ovulate. We need to have that fertile ovulation window because that's when we can conceive. Now, if you're having an irregular cycle, what does that irregularity look like? That irregularity is telling me that there's some sort of imbalance in your body because a healthy average regular menstrual cycle is anywhere between 25 to 35 days. And that should not vary more than 8 days between cycle to cycle. So if you have a 25-day cycle one time, a 40-day cycle one time, a 22-day cycle one time, a 38-day cycle, that is too much variance. There's too much variability there. So there are 6 key different parameters that I use with my client when we talk about the whole charting component of your cycle. And again, like your menstrual cycle is your monthly report card on how your reproductive health is doing. And again, we are not taught this in school. Nobody teaches us this. But so, when we think irregular cycles, what do? We go to the doctor. What do? They put us on birth control. That's not the solution. It's a band aid solution. So then what happens when you want to get pregnant? You get off the cycle, but your regular cycles come back. Now what? Now we have to do some digging and figure out what's going on and why your cycles are irregular. So if you have irregular cycles, you need to first figure out how irregular are those cycles. And from there, you need to find a practitioner who can help you get to the root cause of why your cycles are irregular so that you can regulate them because you will need to have a healthy menstrual cycle in order to naturally conceive.
So there's another question that piggybacks on that pretty closely. It says, I've been on birth control since I was 16 for heavy periods. Will this impact getting pregnant?
Birth control definitely has an impact on the body. And one of the biggest things is it depletes its fertility nutrient stores like folate, B9, a lot of the B vitamins. It also depletes magnesium and zinc. Extended periods of birth control does have effects on the body. So if you are looking to get pregnant and you are on the pill, my recommendation is to always give yourself at least 12 months to get off the pill, regulate your cycle, detox from the pill, and then start trying to get pregnant. So you want to have that healthy 1 year window so that you can clean up your body, get your cycle back to a regular cycle to try and conceive. Because if we think about the mechanism of the birth control pill, it essentially puts our body into menopause. It shuts down our ovaries and it shuts down essentially our reproductive system. And the bleed that we have is pretty much, it's a fake bleed. It's not a real menstrual bleed. So, when you're suppressing your hormones when you're suppressing your ovaries, which is the main producer of progesterone and estrogen, that does have an impact hormonally on the body. So definitely take about a year before you try and conceive after you come off the pill.
Perfect. Another question is weight management. This person would like to lose a little bit of weight, and the doctor recommends only gaining 20 pounds during pregnancy. How would you suggest regulating that?
Right. So when on average, depending on the individual, but on average, a healthy pregnancy weight gain is around 25 pounds. So it could be maybe around 20, 25 pounds, could be up to 30 pounds. It depends on where your set point, where you start, what your set point is to start with. So we're looking for a healthy BMI before we go into pregnancy. And a healthy BMI for women before we go into pregnancy is about 18%. And so you got to figure out what your BMI is up front. And if you're at like 25 or 30% for BMI, you've got to drop the weight until you get to about that 18 to 18% ish mark. And then from there, like, so if you're looking for some sort of quantitative measure, that's what I would use. And then, so BMI is your body mass index. And then from there, once you've kind of got down to that healthy baseline for BMI, then, if you're eating properly and you're stabilizing your blood sugar and you're getting in the right nutrients, then a healthy pregnancy weight gain at that point maybe should be about 25 pounds. But again, these are very generic, very, very generic. I want people to remember that everything is going to be individualized based on their body. But these are good kind of places to start if you're looking for some sort of metric.
Yeah, those are great measurements to kind of get started, and then like you said, everything will be individual or personalized for you. One last one that's specific to the male side of things. Will hot yoga lower my husband's sperm count?
So that's a great question because we did talk about sperm earlier. And one of the big things to improve sperm health is to make sure that you keep, I'm doing air quotes, the boys nice and cool. So a lot of heat down there for extended period of time is actually detrimental to sperm health. So hot yoga is great. It's got some good benefits, but again, everything in balance. How often is he doing hot yoga? Maybe staying away from hot yoga in the follicular phase of your cycle. So, from the period up until maybe you're getting that until you go for ovulation when you're trying just to really optimize the sperm as best as you can. But maybe 5, 6 days of hot yoga, I would say maybe pare that down to 2 or 3 days. And like, I guess it would also depend on so many other variables. Is it always warm down there? Is he wearing tight underwear that's keeping everything nice and hot? I know cycling is a big one for men because, if you're cycling and you're wearing very tight, those cycling shorts, that generates a lot of heat. So one lifestyle factor to help improve with sperm health is to keep things cool down there. So it's not to say that like don't ever go to hot yoga. I guess just be mindful of the balance.
Yeah, maybe adjust to regular yoga a couple times a week, or like you said, during the follicular phase, bringing it down to regular yoga versus hot yoga.
Yes.
So I know we touched on it a little bit, but tell us a little bit about what it would look like to work with you for preconception coaching.
So I have a 3-month program that I take my clients through. That is the service that I offer. That is what I find gets my clients the best results. It's called the Master Your Cycle to Get Pregnant program. And I have it's an online coaching program. So I have an online portal, which kind of breaks out week by week and gives you lots of education on different subject matters, right? We talked about how much information there is in this space. When you're talking about overhaul, changing your lifestyle and your health, this isn't like, I'm going to give you a meal plan. You're going to make these 5 recipes and you're going to take this supplement and then poof, you're going to get pregnant and everything is going to be beautiful. It takes time. There's lots of things to cover, like reviewing your blood labs, reviewing your gut health, creating personalized meal plans, looking at supplements, talking about sperm health, right? If you have irregular cycles, we have to dive into that. So this 3 months program, I have broken it out in a way that it takes you through all these pillars kind of in a paced out manner week by week. And it comes with, so I've got the online portal where you get access to like pre-recorded trainings, lots of handouts. I've kind of consolidated all the information for you in one portal in one space. And then that comes with 10 one-on-one coaching sessions with me throughout those 12 weeks. And that's where the magic really lies. That's where we personalize the entire program for you. And it's also a time for me to help keep you motivated and accountable because we know, changing any health habit, we all quote unquote kind of know what to do, but it's a matter of sticking to it and who's going to hold you accountable. And are you implementing the right thing for your body? And so it comes with those 10 one-on-one coaching sessions, and we review everything from nutrition, cycle charting, egg health, sperm health, supplements, all of the above.
Awesome. Yeah, I think what's unique about your program is that there is like an educational component, obviously, but then the individualized sessions are great because as we keep saying, like every person's different. There's gonna be some level of personalization you're gonna need. I think having someone digesting the information is one thing, but then being able to work directly with someone I think is a huge game changer for sure.
That's my favorite part. I love it. I mean, at the end of it, I've spent so much time with my clients. We kind of, you kind of become friends because I
Yeah.
learn such intimate details of these people's lives, and I've maintained a contact with a lot of my clients, and it's wonderful. I feel so grateful to have this opportunity. I get to work with people from all around the world, and I have clients in California being like, "Come to California, or you can stay with us."
Yeah, that's so
it's
awesome.
it yeah, it's really I'm very, very blessed and grateful to have the opportunity to kind of work in this space and be able to support and help people just fulfill their dreams of becoming parents. Like, to me, that is the ultimate reward.
Yeah, absolutely. So, do you have anything coming up under Naturally Nora that you want to mention and we can put in the show notes?
Yeah, so I am launching my own podcast, which I'm excited about. So by the time this comes out, that my podcast might be out, and it's called the Ultimate Pregnancy Prep Podcast. And so if you'd like, learn lots more about preconception health there. In addition to that, you can also I have a free resource that's available if anybody is looking for it. I also like to, as part of my program, I teach my clients how to use nutrition and self care to harness the power of their menstrual cycle. So our bodies have different nutritional needs and different hormonal needs at different weeks of our cycle. So I have a one pager free guide called the Eat to Get Pregnant guide, which gives you kind of a breakdown week by week on what nutrients and foods you should be focusing on based on where your hormones are at. So you can find that at www.naturallynora.ca/e.
Awesome. Those are great. And we'll put those in the show notes. And then we'll also post them on social media too, kind of to direct people where to go to get those. Um, can you tell listeners where they can find you, social media, wherever you want people to find you?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram. You can find me at naturally_Nora. That's my main social media platform. I also have a private Facebook group where I do weekly live trainings in there. I've got lots of recipes. I sometimes bring guests in there, and that is called the Preconception Coach. And you can find my website if you're looking for more information on the program or how to work with me, you can head over to my website at www.naturallynora.ca. So it's .ca, not .com, because
Yeah.
I am Canadian.
Awesome. So, thank you so much for being on the podcast. As I said a million times, I was really excited to have you and look forward to following you on social media. We'll absolutely be subscribing to your new podcast that I'm thrilled that you're starting. So, everything you mentioned, we'll put into the show notes. I highly, highly encourage following Nora. She has a beautiful feed on Instagram. And just share some really incredible information. Thank you so much for coming on. Anything else you might want to mention?
Everybody out there, no matter where you are on this journey, all I have to say is just hold your vision, trust it's coming, and just keep going. Keep going and be patient with yourself and laugh. Laugh. Try not to take ourselves too seriously. But otherwise, thank you so much for having me, Jessica. It was a pleasure chatting with you. And I love educating, and I love talking about this topic. So thanks for having me on.
Well, thanks for being on. And you'll be able to catch episodes on anywhere you listen to podcasts. Don't forget to subscribe, follow us on social media, and we will talk to you next time. Thanks for tuning in.